anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus. Unless you're going to partition the country, the whole country has to be in this together. Countries that pay that price, which is a gigantic price, then the percentage of Chinese that are infected is like 0.01%. We need to make this our top priority. And it is super painful to drive this very high degree of social isolation I call shutdown. Hanging out in restaurants, I doubt they're going to want to do that. People want to protect older people, they want to protect their parents. And so the sooner we take this medicine, which is tough medicine, the sooner we'll be out of it and not have to go back into it again. Country do a serious shutdown, that they will be able to avoid a high percentage of their population getting infected. Because things like food and electricity, there are essential functions where we still want people to be connected. What's going on here is mind-blowing. Never in my lifetime very dramatic. I mean, nothing like this has ever happened to the economy in our lifetimes. But money, bringing the economy back and doing money, that's more of a reversible thing than bringing people back to life. Even for me who works in this area though, the idea of what we're doing, how we're having to change the economy here in order to drop the number of cases, it's really unprecedented. And
we need to escalate that, whether it's through the government's helping with tax breaks or subsidies of that nature to increase manufacturing of those types of products. It can happen quickly. A Marshall-type plan, don't mean to say that exactly, but a Marshall plan that can go into effect can stimulate a change very quickly.
State leaders have had to step in and take some responsibility there. But
governments need to be willing to do things that are out of their historical perspective. For the most part, it's really a war footing that we need to be on.
El Real Decreto de Estado de Alarma no dispone de ningún tipo de documentación en concreto, no hay nada de salvoconductos ni certificados, pero la Policía Nacional, como venimos haciendo hasta ahora, podemos hacer cualquier tipo de comprobación.
cross-training the military so they can play a role in terms of all the logistics here. This can be done. This will cost trillions of dollars. They just passed a $2 trillion relief bill and now they're talking about more. The kind of research to be ready for the next pandemic is a tens of billions of number, so it'll look almost trivial. We've invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. Well, having these markets where you have, bats in a cage and pangolins and things like that, it's fairly clear that the less we have of those, that somewhat reduces the chance, but it won't reduce it to zero.
Scienziati cinesi creano un super virus polmonare da pipistrelli e topi. Serve solo per motivi di studio, ma sono tante le proteste. Vale la pena rischiare.
Force of infection because of modern transport, which compared to 1918 is over 50 times as great. And so if you get something like a flu and you look at that map of how within days it's basically in all urban centers of the entire globe, that is very eye-opening. That didn't happen with Spanish flu in the past. It's kind of unfortunate that we don't have a digital system that's ranking for the finite capacity we have exactly which ones should be taken care of there. And maybe we'll get that fixed.
Most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
There's a lot of dialogue between our foundation experts and the government now, but what does opening up look like? You know, which activities have, like schools, have such benefit and can be done in a way that the risk of transmission is very low?
Yeah.
And which activities, like mass gatherings, may be, in a certain sense, more optional. And so until you're widely vaccinated, those may not come back at all. I've talked to the head of the pharmaceutical companies. We've talked to a lot of the agencies, including CDC and NIH, about how we work together on the vaccine. How do you connect to the vaccine companies? What money could you give them in advance? How confident are you that when you're going out and giving this, that there's no side effects? And you know, vaccines actually can, in weird cases, do an enhancement of the disease. And then we're working closely with the vaccine companies, and they're the ones, although it's probably 18 months or so, they're the ones that can really get things back to where we're not worried about large public gatherings.
For instance, the first vaccine could be ready in 18 months.
A large epidemic would require us to have hundreds of thousands of workers. You know, there are some good things happening. The work on a vaccine, although that probably will take 18 months, that's going full speed ahead. Our foundation is funding that.
That wipes out, you know, huge percentages of countries' populations, and that is entirely possible. So for anybody who doesn't think that this is reason enough,
Buy new houses. Ignore that pile of bodies over in the corner. Just, you know, we want you to keep spending because there's some, maybe a politician who thinks GDP growth is what really counts.
If you don't want many more body bags, then you refrain from politicizing it.
We're looking at getting vaccines to everyone in the world. So in the long run, that is the key thing.